excited. Oh, that everyone made some time, that all of you made some time in your afternoon to join us for our October Speaker Series event. I am, for those of you who don't know, I'm Andy Gallagher. I'm the director of the Early Childhood Institute. And we are super excited to be hosting Marisol and Corey from SEAL for today's event, where they're going to discuss with us how to center dual language learners in early childhood programs and how to partner with families in order to do so. Just very briefly, some information about our two amazing guests. Marisol Sanchez has been involved in the field of education for over 20 years. Most recently, she has been one of SEAL's program coordinators, and SEAL stands for Sobrato Early Academic Language. And her work focuses on supporting early learning with dual language learners. She's been involved in the creation and design of multiple SEAL preschool offerings in partnership with Early Edge, LAUSD, Long Beach's EduCare, and other districts throughout the state. She's also collaborated with LAUSD's Multicultural Multilingual Education Department and Early Childhood Education Division on a variety of advocacy efforts related to English learners' needs, dual language program development, and instructional design. Corey Weschler has spent the past 25 years examining nonviolence, community building, youth development, play, and restorative justice across the pre-K through 12 grade spectrum. And this work has included directing a community-based youth leadership program, teaching women and girls self-defense, and developing sports-based youth development curricula, and leading school-based restorative justice initiatives in the East Bay and Los Angeles. Corey also spent 2 years as a co-teacher in a preschool classroom and had coordinated self-defense and martial arts programs for 3 to 6 year olds. She's now a program coordinator at SEAL with a focus on early learning. And she's also been involved in the creation and design of multiple SEAL early learning offerings with a variety of districts and county offices across the state of California. So welcome again, and thank you. I'm going to go ahead and mute. And I think that everyone should have gotten the notice that we're recording. So if you can mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and also be sure to use the chat to let us know if you have any questions along the way.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was a great introduction. Welcome to today's speaker series on centralizing our dual language learners, the power of the family school partnership in early learning. We're very much looking forward to spending some time with you this afternoon. So you already heard about us, and we just want to express how grateful we are that we get a chance to connect with you in this way. We're very passionate about our dual language learners, and we're so glad to get to have this conversation with all of you today. And so we'd like to start off by inviting you to type in the chat, what is your role in early learning spaces? And whether or not you want to share that role, that's fine. Whether you don't, that's okay too. But we really, really want to know what brings you to this session today. We know that you're a diverse group coming into this learning space from many different angles. And we're curious as to what drew you to this session. We have Eliana, who's a school counselor intern. Welcome. And Jessica, who's an elementary education specialist. And many of your students are dual language learners. Perfect. Manager at an early start family, inclusion facilitator. Wonderful. Keep those coming. Keep those coming. We really love to know who is with us today. And we have a director of SCOE here. Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really exciting to get a sense of this group and to kind of get a sense of your relationship to dual language learners and the early learning field. As you heard a little bit about SEAL, what it stands for, Sobrato Early Academic Language Model. We are a nonprofit organization committed to ensuring all dual language learners learn, thrive, and lead. We're an organization firmly rooted in equity and social justice who strives to disrupt the systems of oppression in education by placing dual language learners at the heart. And we do this by partnering with several public education agencies across the state to transform their systems through professional learning and technical assistance, and by advocating for state-level changes that focus on the needs of dual language learners. To learn more about our organization and the work that we do, we invite you to visit our website at seal.org. During our time together, we're looking to raise our collective awareness about some of the specific needs of our youngest dual language learners. Children internalize at a very young age societal messages about who is and who is not valued. Thus, it is critical in the early learning space, not only to ensure that the instruction is reflective of, but really centers the languages, cultures, identities of the children that we serve. And here's the thing, family members are children's first teachers, right? They're the ones who know them best. And simply put, creating this rich, affirming early learning space cannot happen without families. So we will begin talking like big picture about why centering dual language learners in the early space is so critical. And in part, we'll be looking at some California data, myths surrounding this topic, as well as what the research says about those myths. Then we'll be honing in on a piece of research that is so clear about the importance of homeschool partnership, looking at how to nurture this. And finally, we will turn our eye to the classroom and explore several strategies that can transform the experience of dual language learners and their families, as well as teachers.
All in 50 minutes. Get ready, get set,
Let's
go!
go. So at SEAL, we're very clear that part of what we're working to do is positively change how the field views dual language learners. We're also looking to dramatically improve their educational experience, starting when they are first entering school, right? Which is where we all come in. And part of what is exciting about this is that whatever it is that we are, whatever our role is, or wherever we're coming into this, we can each contribute to this important and beautiful vision in creating these very important critical aspects in our classroom. We know that we have different spheres of influence, the work we do and how we choose to engage in this work, but there's space for all of us to contribute. And why this call to shift how dual language learners are viewed and supported? Well, we're going to start to answer this by first identifying who makes up California and who is being served by our system. So let's start with, in this session, please type in the chat the languages that you speak. Oh, I see a lot of Spanish and English, some German. Should I put some French? Maybe. Korean, English and Spanish, monolingual English, Vietnamese. Now, for those working directly with preschool-aged children and families, either in places where you're teaching, supporting, or observing, I'd like us to bring into this space the many languages of the children and families that are around you. So go ahead and put those languages into the chat, please. Yeah, I see Vietnamese, Mandarin, Farsi, Japanese, Mandarin again, Spanish, English. So let that sink in for a moment, right? This incredible richness of languages and cultures and experiences. And preschool is a space rich in all of those languages and cultures as well, right? I see Tagalog, Arabic, Korean. And I want to offer a little more data connected to this. California's demographics have changed dramatically in the past few decades. More than 2/3 of our young learners are children of color. And California is home to the nation's largest population of dual language learners, with nearly 60% of children in California, 5 and under, living in homes where a language other than English is spoken. That's what you've illustrated, right? With all of the languages that you entered into the chat. And here's a graph from the California Department of Education. It captures the top 6 languages spoken by kinder to 12th graders in the state. As you can see, the vast majority of English learners, almost 82%, speak Spanish at home, right? We also saw that reflected in the chat. The families of these children are putting a lot of trust into the early learning spaces where they hand over their most precious children, hoping and believing that these spaces and these adults will attend to their children and prepare them for a lifelong of learning, right? And it's these children who will grow up to be leading members of our communities. And while we know who makes up this early learning space, there's still a lot of resistance to seeing languages other than English as an asset. Messages are woven into the fabric of our society about what language is valued and important. And these messages impact a person's relationship to their language, to the languages they develop, and how they develop those languages. These messages also impact children's relationship to their family members, the relationship to their own culture, the pride or embarrassment they might feel with who they are. And let's face it, language is intimately connected to how we know ourselves. Thus, it's really important to name these myths and then know what the research actually says. So as I read these myths out loud, one by one, please note in the chat the ones you have heard or have been impacted by. For instance, as I read the first one, learning 2 languages confuses children. If this is something you've heard or have been impacted by, either as a young person or more recently, go ahead and type the number 1 in the chat. A lot of you have heard this. Yeah. What about this second one? Speaking their home language will hinder children's development of English. Many of you have heard this or have been impacted by this. What about this third one? English is the only language necessary for success. At one point or another, have you ever heard this or have been impacted by this? Alma has, Nadia has, Treasure has. What about this one? English immersion is the best way for a child to learn English. You've heard this before, Debbie. Patty has heard this too. Jessica has heard this one as well. And what about this one? Children will maintain their home language while they learn English. Have you heard this one? So go ahead and put number 5 or yes. Yes works too. Yeah, people have heard this one. Nadia has not heard this one. So take a quick moment to notice what is coming up for you in terms of your own growing up and how these messages have impacted your own beliefs about language. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Corey, who's going to take us into the next couple of sections.
Thanks, Marisol. So I, again, just sit with what is coming up, because for many of us, this is actually very personal and has had huge consequences, right? And has really impacted life trajectory. So I'm just going to ask you to note that, and we're not actually going to unmute and share in the interest of time, because that's how this works, but just I really do want to acknowledge that these myths super powerful and impactful, and we're going to unpack that now. So if I can have the next slide. So research shows us again and again that these messages that we just looked at and then resulting insistence on minimizing the importance of home language and elevating English has a tremendous impact on children's social identity and their ability to develop strong positive relationships with family members. And it also directly affects how successful they are in school. So these two publications that you see in front of you are recent publications that really provide us with the most current research on the development of dual language learners and how important home language is to their overall development. Both publications also really focus on the importance of family engagement and provide very specific recommendations for the field. So I want to call out 5 really important key findings from this research that directly debunk and counter the myths that we just talked about. So the first is that actually all children have the capacity to learn 2 or more languages. And although languages can be learned at any age, it's during these ages that you all are so intimately involved with, 0 to 7, that children can develop near native-like proficiency in multiple languages. The research also shows that having a strong home language supports children in learning English. And I really want to emphasize this one because this myth surrounding this one is so powerful. So actually having a strong home language supports the learning of English, does not take away or deter from that. For all language, whether it's English or Spanish or Korean, children need exposure to competent language role models for those who are like sitting deeply in that language. And lastly, and this is super critical for everyone, including families, to be aware of, is that studies show really clearly that exposure only to English in these early years can result in the loss of home language. And so this is the research that needs to inform the early learning field. It should be at the forefront guiding decisions about program language models, curriculum, and instruction, as well as the interactions that program staff have with children and families. So we're going to share a really brief clip that really that brings forth the voices of a mom and her 2 children, illustrating both sides of this coin, both how harmful these myths can be to family well-being, as well as what's possible when we apply this research to our educational systems. No sound. What happened?
Como para mí.
Sorry
Bastante.
about that.
For me personally, it was
Let
hard.
me start it again. It won't play.
César, ¿cómo se pone el trabajo, hijo?
Bien.
Tengo 3 hijos y uno de mis hijos, el mediano, no entiende mucho el español. Yo no entiendo el 100% inglés, eso es frustrante, tanto para él como para mí, bastante.
For me personally, it was hard communication-wise because my mom would talk to me in Spanish, and I would respond back to her in English. And sometimes she wouldn't understand what I would be saying, and sometimes I wouldn't understand what she would be saying. So I had to get him to translate for me.
Being in a bilingual program is fun because cuando hay personas como que no saben tanto español, yo puedo hablar con ellos en inglés.
What happened?
Was there more? I think that was it.
I don't think so, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay. So I'm going to invite folks to just go into chat and just share what came up for you as you watch this little clip, of which we'll send you the whole piece. But what came up for you as you watched this clip? if you want to, you can also just unmute yourself and share. You can bring your actual voice into this space and just share what came up for you as you listened to this family. Yeah, just what happens in a family when they cannot communicate with each other. Yep. The role of the youngest child in being the translator for the family and the in-between, and that responsibility and the pressure. Yeah, and just like the heartbreak and the frustration that people experience feeling so limited. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, everyone. All right, so in addition to debunking these myths, the research is also really clear about all the benefits that come with supporting dual language learners in developing their home language. And so we've talked about positive identity, we've talked a little bit about family connections, but there are also these other areas. So the linguistic benefits occur as children are able to use all of their linguistic repertoire to make sense of the world. There are clear cognitive benefits in bilingual children, their brains being more apt for multitasking, for example. And by attending to the use of home language, we're really setting them up for being in a bilingual world, which often provides economic compensation for those with bilingual skills. And finally, as we look to their future, research shows really clearly that bilingual students are less likely to drop out of school and go to a 4-year college and really be able to engage more broadly in society. And so it's really our hope that this current research, along with strong teaching practices, can help us break down these myths and move us toward building an early childhood education field that really centers dual language learners, their languages, cultures, and identities. So we just talked a lot about this first key finding, that home language is crucial. And there are 2 additional research findings that we want to bring your attention. One is that strong homeschool connections are essential. And the other is that affirming caring relationships and environments impact development, motivation, and participation in learning. And so we're going to spend much of our remaining time looking at how these 3 areas intersect and support one another. All right, so the research again is super clear that linguistic and cultural continuity between home and school supports children's overall development and learning, and that 2-way partnerships between home and school are essential for creating that congruity. So this 2-way relationship shifts the dynamic from teacher as sole holder of knowledge to viewing families as also being the holders of knowledge. As you all know, families bring with them a wealth of wisdom, including language, identity, culture, history, and well-being. They have stories to share about their lives and their perspectives, as well as a wealth of skills. And so I'm just going to share a really brief story with you. During a community workers unit, I asked children to share about their families' different jobs that they held. And this was something that I had sent home as a family conversation, which we'll be talking about in a moment. And Jamie, one of the students, one of the kiddos, shared that her mom worked at a local pizza parlor. And the kids got super, super excited about this, thinking in their minds that Jamie got pizza every day to eat, until one classmate mentioned how sad it was that all her mom could make for her was pizza. Because I had taken the time to get to know Jamie's amazing mom, I knew that yes, she did work at a pizza parlor and she had earned an engineering degree back in Guatemala. And that this job at the pizza parlor was allowing her to be able to take her young children to and from school. And so she made a choice to have this job. Following this conversation, I arranged for her to come into the classroom and share about her work. And here we learned from her that there's so much that goes on in a pizza parlor. And one of the things she shared is that she actually was working on fixing their ovens and looking for ways to make their takeout containers more environmentally friendly. And so we actually invited her back during our recycling unit too, because she had a lot to say about that as well. And so incorporating family knowledge into the classroom and curriculum enhances the learning community. Connecting with families in this way is absolutely essential, and it's what we mean by an assets-based approach. So where does this work begin? The first step is toward this meaningful partnership is that teachers really get to know each and every family. And again, this isn't a new concept in the ECE field, and is actually an area of strength, I would say. We are offering tools here we'll make available after this that are 3 ECE resources that provide interviews and also really wonderful questions to help guide these conversations with families. And so how can this information inform classroom and curriculum? Well, here are 2 examples. So collecting information about the various languages spoken sets teachers up to invite family members in as featured language experts in the class. And we'll talk about this in a moment. Or as was my example with Jamie and her mom, learning about different jobs that families hold sets you up then to be able to bring them in to share these skills and experiences that they have in their different fields of work. And so the idea is that we want teachers in an ongoing, intentional manner to make these deep connections and to then draw on families to really be part of the community. So we'd like to share with you 2 or 3 really beautiful strategies that educators can use to transform the classroom. All 3 of these grow out of the homeschool partnership that we just talked about and center dual language learners, their languages and their identities. So I just a moment ago mentioned families as language experts, so we're going to start there. One incredibly critical job of early childhood educators is to be very clear about the value of children's languages and really be thinking about how to put forth a positive and affirming message over and over again about bilingualism and multilingualism, and also to really lift up what an asset their languages are. And so this is particularly important in English instructed classes where English is the dominant language. So here's the thing. While educators may not be an expert in the 15 languages that their children and families speak, their families are. And so one of the most powerful ways of creating language presence is by honoring family members as the language experts that they are, and by inviting them in to share their language expertise with the class. So when partnering with families in this way, several things occur. Educators begin to build those strong family-school partnerships. They develop positive attitudes about bilingualism, and they model being lifelong learners alongside their children, curious and excited about learning languages. It also ends up really shaping the curriculum, right? So what families are offering becomes part of the learning. And this in turn offers a reflection of the children's world right in the curriculum. So we want the complexity and beauty of children's various identities to have a place in the classroom. And language experts is a natural entry point to make this happen. Can I have the next slide, please, Marisol? Thanks. Given that language sits nestled within a broader culture, teachers want to bring forth not only the languages of their families, but the distinct cultures of them as well, right? So it's super important that teachers are careful not to clump all speakers of a language into a single category. For example, Spanish-speaking families from Mexico, El Salvador, and Argentina all have distinct language and cultural differences. Again, this requires that teachers really engage with families to learn what it is that they would like to share about their language and culture. And one really easy way to do this is to recognize, is to look at the distinctions in books and songs and the recommendations that families make and feel good about. And so this is a place that educators can really follow the lead of families. Similarly, beyond sharing about their language, educators can really invite families to share about the customs and traditions related to their culture, family stories, the important foods of their culture. We can invite them to share about the art and artists from their countries, about traditional dress, as well as the toys that children play with, and the popular activities or sports from those countries. So these sharing opportunities are meant to be super low stress for families, while at the same time really being a moment of pride for the child and family sharing, and a moment of expanding children's understanding of the world and who make up the world. So how do language experts work? So there are 3 main steps to implementing this strategy. The first is identifying all the languages that are represented in a teacher's class. So, and the 3 templates that we briefly shared with you can really help with this. Then the teacher calendars out the languages over the course of a year, spending a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks on each language and culture. So even in a classroom primarily of Spanish speakers, this provides a really beautiful opportunity for the various cultures of the families to be brought forward and honored. And then finally, the teacher partners with the families to see if and how they would like to share with the classroom community. So here's a lovely example of a class in the midst of an oceans unit. A parent offered to come in during this unit and teach a song about the fish of the ocean in Spanish. The mother first recorded the song for the teacher so the teacher could learn it, but then came in and actually taught it to the children herself. And she and the teacher got the children up and singing, as well as using movements and gestures to help with comprehension. So did all the kids understand everything in that song? Likely not, but those moments send a really powerful message about the value of children's home language, right? And they help to build a safe and welcoming community for the children and families that in turn strengthens family-school partnerships. Here's some other examples of how drawing on family members as language experts can contribute to the language of the class. So on the left is a poster a teacher hung on the front door of a classroom, inviting everyone to share the way that they say hello in their language. On the right, a similar poster that was connected to the thematic unit. So this class was studying the ocean, and children and families were invited to add how they say fish in their various languages. And so you can just think about the immediate message this gives about all languages being welcome and valuable in this space, valued in this space. So I'd like to invite you to go to chat and just share what's coming up for you as I talk about this concept of families as language experts. And again, you can unmute yourself as well, but what's coming up for you?
If I may, Corey, I think you're assuming that all people who belong to a particular group are a homogeneous group of people who value the language in the same way. I think what I've heard from my own students is that their parents are reticent to talk to them in their language of origin.
Yes.
And some of that may be because they really have true conviction that they want to abandon their culture of origin, depending upon how they were treated there, or that they're really afraid of the way they're being shamed into not speaking, right?
Yeah.
A language other than English. So I mean, the way you talk about culture is making me uncomfortable because there's a lot of variation within any group.
Absolutely.
On values, beliefs, and the extent to which they value any given language.
I really, really appreciate you speaking up. Thank you very much. And absolutely, like this is a super complicated bunch of strands of pieces here, and you're bringing up several of them that we don't unpack at all in this 90-minute session. And the one thing and they're all really valid and important and a part of how complex this is. And I feel like the piece I want to really uplift is there's also this huge piece at play around the messages that people receive in this country about their value and the value of their home language and what it means to set their children up for success, that I feel like is super important that we lift up, because while the pieces that you say are, I would say they're on equal footing, but unless we're giving families information that counters these very harmful myths, I don't actually feel like they feel like they have a choice. Like saying we are choosing to move away from our culture for this and this reason, or we're choosing to move away because they've internalized so many messages that really shame and put down languages and cultures that aren't connected to English. And so absolutely, and I really want us to think about how are we interrupting very harmful myths that are put out in this country. Thank you for speaking up. And I hope that you hear that I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And I do not want this to feel like we're clumping everybody into the same space with the same experience, because it is absolutely that we are talking about the most complex, diverse community with so many experiences. And we know in this country that English is absolutely put on a different, is held up as, you know, the language of this country. And there's a lot to unpack in that as well. Okay.
I really do appreciate that conversation. I think it's an important one because we do need to continue to recognize that there's so many people coming into this space in different forms. And I think just to add to what you are saying in terms of some people just want to feel that they don't want to embrace, that is something that really resonates with me. You know, I came from a lot of trauma from my own country. And so I feel like a lot of the fear and a lot of the cultural pieces that are just so hard to unravel is exactly why we are having conversations like this. And we really are hoping that it sparks this conversation, and we embrace it and we welcome it, and we really appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you, Marisol. What I was merely trying to point out is that there's so much variation.
Yes.
And because we're dealing with individual people, families, and children, it really is essential to know them as people.
Absolutely.
Who may or may not, conform to whatever it is, whatever aspect of their culture that we think they belong to. So yes. I think that's all I'm trying to say.
And I think it's an excellent point. I feel like that's exactly what we're getting at in terms of getting to know the families in as much as they want us to know, right? Because we obviously want to be respectful of the kind of information they are willing to share with us. And all of it we embrace. How little or how much varies. And all of it is absolutely okay. Okay, we're gonna continue with this other piece about family conversations and projects to further support this school family partnership, providing opportunities for families to contribute and build on what is happening in the classroom. So the purpose of these family conversations, some of the ideas that we're going to be sharing with you today, is really to empower families to capitalize on the use of their home language in meaningful ways. And so there's work that is begun at school that then flows into the home where the use of the home language is encouraged. And then the work returns to the classroom where there are spaces that open up and welcome children and their families to share and expand everyone's learning. This two-way partnership between home and school are what become this essential piece in creating that affirming, asset-oriented early learning environment. And while we've spoken quite a bit about language and a little bit about culture so far, we want to acknowledge that just as we had heard in the conversation just now, there's many other aspects of identity that children bring with them to the classroom. And this includes their family structure, their nationality, their perceived race, economic class, religion, gender, and different physical abilities. And of course, there's many invisible factors at play too, right? Impacting these young people. Situations maybe that they have an incarcerated parent or a family member that's dealing with mental health issues, or they're in a foster home. It's important for teachers and for all educators to look for ways to validate those various aspects of their identity and to provide opportunities for children to talk if they want and to share if they want who they are at home with their families and in the classroom. I'm going to actually skip that one. So family conversations and projects are teacher-initiated prompts and activities that are meant to be simple, but encourage families to spend time actively talking and interacting with one another. And these conversations are meant to be engaging and joyful and bring families together. So it's important that the prompts are open-ended and don't require that families have specific knowledge or experience with a particular topic. And because these interactions support children's vocabulary and oral language development, we encourage families to talk with their children in the language that they feel the most comfortable and can best express themselves using rich descriptive language. So again, we encourage the use of home language if that's the one that they would like to use. As mentioned, family conversations and projects can be used to support children's positive identity development. And since our names tend to be an important part of identity, we're going to share an example of how, when coordinated, classroom activities and family conversations can help children explore this topic in a deep and thoughtful manner. So there are many wonderful books written for children about the importance of names, and one particular one that we love for this kind of work is Alma and How She Got Her Name. It's available in English and Spanish and does a beautiful job of drawing attention to the feelings and stories behind our names and how they form an important part of our identity. It's a story of a little girl who doesn't care for her name because she thinks it's too long. Perhaps you've heard of this beautiful book already. I'm going to read just a few pages so you get a sense of the story. This is Alma and How She Got Her Name. Alma Sofía Esperanza José Pura Candela had a long name. Too long, if you asked her. My name is too long, Daddy. It never fits, Alma said. Come here, he said. Let me tell you the story of your name. Then you decide if it fits. Sofía was your grandmother, he began. She loved books, poetry, jasmine flowers, and of course, me. She was the one who taught me how to read. I love books and flowers. And you, Daddy? I am Sofía. And one by one, the father continues sharing the story behind each of the names. And as Alma hears the story, she's able to make a personal connection to each name. And her feelings about her name begin to change. And at the very end, she states, Alma Sofía Esperanza José Pura Candela. That's my name. I am Alma, and I have a story to tell. So you can imagine the rich conversations between teachers and children that might result in the classroom because of this book. There are opportunities for them to reflect on how Alma was feeling about her name at the beginning of the story compared to how her feelings changed throughout. It's a wonderful extension also to think about this book, how it would be great for children to have the discussion about how they feel about their own name and do they know where their name came from anyhow? And this would be a good idea to send home and have the children learn the story behind their names. So as a bridge to this story and discussion, the teacher would prepare children for what will be a family conversation by sharing the story of their name using visuals whenever possible. So here's an example of how I might tell a story of my name to a group of preschoolers. I know you know me by Señora Sanchez, but my name is also Ana Marisol. Can you say it with me? Ana Marisol. Well, Ana came from the city I was born in Santa Ana, El Salvador. You can see a picture of this big church or catedral in the middle of Santa Ana. My mom made a promise in that church that if I was born healthy, she would name me after that city. And I was also named Marisol. You see that picture there? It's of a Spanish actress of the 1970s. That's a long time ago. That's when I was born. She made movies and was strong and adventurous. She traveled all over the world, just the things my parents wanted for me. So again, that's the story of my name. So after modeling the story of their name, the teacher would ask the children to go home and learn stories behind their names, encouraging that these conversations happen using their home language, if possible. So this simple family conversation asks families to talk with their child about the story behind their name and to write it down. So this is an example of something that you might send home. So while it's short and simple, you can see how it would create an opportunity for a meaningful conversation around something that the children are interested in. And of course, it's important that prompts and instructions be translated in the home language whenever possible. And if it's a language that you don't know, again, remembering to tapping into the language expertise of families, right? Partnering up with them to get those translations done as well. An extension to this family conversation can be to turn it into a family project where you could be asking families not only to write down the story behind the children's name, but then children can draw themselves, or there's a picture that could be pasted onto the same sheet. And families can then continue this work at home by sharing the stories behind their names and other family members' names. And the piece about how it shows up back into the classroom, inviting families to come in to the class and share these stories alongside their children. This is, again, the very powerful piece about the strategy, that it then comes back and becomes part of the learning. We want to be mindful that some children and families may not know the story of their names in cases of adoption or foster care, for example. Another option can be to invite families to create an I am called web with their child, focusing on all the names, nicknames, or terms of endearment they hear in their current family situation. Again, the teachers would first model this for children by sharing a story of their own web. Teachers can also partner with families around the content being taught. So Homeschool Connections are similar to the family conversations and projects, but these are directly connected to the content that is being explored in the classroom. So if they're studying insects, then some of those Homeschool Connections would be about those insects. In this way, families are invited into what children are learning about and are contributing to that learning as well. The video I'm about to share with you is a lovely example of a homeschool project connected to an insect unit.
Ok, buenos días, papitos. Entonces, hoy vamos a compartir todo lo que han visto los niños de los insectos y vamos a hablar de la conexión escuela-hogar y cómo ustedes se sintieron con este proyecto. ¿Quién quiere ir primero? A ver, señora Esperanza, venga con Jeffrey. Vengan acá, ven Jeffrey con tu mami. A ver, aquí. Y nos van a contar de su experiencia, de su trabajo con su insecto. A ver.
One of the things that we saw today is the result of a family school project. These things happen all the time in a SEAL curriculum where teachers are thinking about what is it I can have children go home and do with their families, that connects the families to what we're learning in school, that enables the kids to bring something wonderful into the classroom that they've created with their parents. Parents are children's first teachers. And for young children who are in school and in programs for the first time, the connection between home and school becomes very, very important. To have these two very different worlds is difficult for children. So high quality programs really work at the connection between families and schools and create opportunities for the parents to be part of what happens in school, create environments in the classroom where kids can see their families represented while they're at school. We saw that one of those kinds of projects was for families to work with their child to create some kind of model of an insect and to bring it in and share it with the class. And eventually those insects become part of the environment in the class.
Fue una experiencia muy bonita. Ahorita, pues, para mí es una experiencia muy nueva. Y me gusta mucho compartir con él
to create the optimal learning environment, we have to be thinking of creating the world for them in which they can explore, in which they can discover, in which they can be young scientists. We have to be thinking about the kind of language that we want them to have and how to model it and give them practice in using it. Most of the families of the children in this classroom, Spanish is their language. But because it's their language that their children are learning in, they can participate. It becomes a very important thing for young children to have their home language be a key part of their learning while they're also learning English.
La ciencia que estudia los insectos se llama, ¿cómo se llama?
¿Cómo se llama el que estudia los insectos?
Entomólogo.
Entomólogo.
El
Muy
entomólogo
bien.
está hablando mucho de entomólogo y me impresiona, ¿verdad? Ver cómo ellos han aprendido palabras nuevas, ¿verdad? Que por lo menos yo no sabía, ¿verdad? Que entomólogo es la ciencia que estudia la persona que estudia los insectos. Entonces eso fue algo nuevo para mí.
Okay. So we want to give you a moment again, using the chat. What did you notice and what stood out to you in this particular video clip? Yes, the learning occurred for both the parents and the child. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of very specific, rich language, right? Specific to what the children are studying. And there's so many beautiful words that sometimes we don't think that the children can handle, but they can. Yes, all smiles. Both engaged for the lesson. Yeah, and that's part of this, right? Keeping those families as part of the learning space. Yes, very happy, and definitely the families felt empowered, right? Okay, so as with everything, keep those coming. We overplan, but there's another piece that, again, we'll be offering you at the end, and it's this idea of literature of windows and mirrors. And it's just basically making the point that it is so important to be aware of the types of books that you provide for children. And as this noted author says, anytime books are used in a classroom, they are not only teaching about who is and who is not important, valued, and real. And so it's important to know how books have the power to validate and confirm a person's existence, as well as do the very opposite. And we're going to be giving you some of these resources at the end of our session today. But I'm going to turn it over to Corey, who's going to take us to the very end of our session.
Thanks, Marisol. So I'm still chewing on your comment about your discomfort with how we're talking about culture, and would love to follow up with you because I want to unpack that more. So I'm putting out that invitation because that is so not our intention. So I would love to dialogue if you're open to that. We mentioned a few resources as we went through the session, and we'll be making those as well as three other resources available to you. One is this NASEM brief, which I mentioned earlier on, the most recent research, and it's long. It's like 600 pages. I have not even cracked it, but SEAL has put out a 6-page brief that really summarizes it. So for those of you who would like to further look at the research, we'll make that available to you. We also have a several-page FAQ about dual language learners that we want to make available, as well as a really beautiful 10-minute video about affirming children's languages, cultures, and identities. And it just has all these beautiful scenes in the classroom and ways that teachers are being responsive to who's in their classroom, and really thinking about how that is rolled into curriculum and instruction. So, along with the research that we shared with you about dual language learners, here's a recap of these couple of strategies that really anchor a lot of our work in the classroom. And I'm really hoping that you're feeling inspired and excited to continue this conversation in your different communities. And as you know, whenever we do these sessions, we always hope that you're taking away something new to add to your toolkit and to your thinking. I definitely am today. And just really want to thank you for being here and being engaged, and both in chat and in terms of unmuting and sharing some ideas. And we'd like to close today by inviting you again to, if you wanted to unmute or into chat, just share like what are those nuggets that you are taking away or chewing on, if anybody would like to share in either place. Does anybody want to share anything that you're like leaving thinking about, wondering about, wanting to continue to talk with anybody about? We're going to let you chew on it then. All right. So, integrating the family's languages into the curriculum. Great. Good. I believe a recording will be made available. There was a question about that. I believe it will. Yeah, thank you all so much. So to close, I know many of you are logging off and some are staying on for a bit longer. And so again, for those who are leaving, on behalf of Marisol and myself, I really want to extend a huge thank you for joining us today. It's not lost on us that you decided to carve time out of your busy days to be here, and we are really grateful. Again, if you're interested in learning more about SEAL, just check us out at seal.org. And then for those who are staying, take a 1 minute quick stretch break, stay logged on, and we will continue momentarily.